On airspace, there have actually been two developments. First, the new ILS, Instrument Landing System, for Seletar Airport. Put simply, an ILS is an aid for pilots to land safely at an airport during bad weather or when there is low visibility conditions. Seletar Airport actually meets all the relevant requirements of the International Civil Aviation Organization on airport design and operations. Planes have been safely flying in and out of Seletar Airport for decades using the same flight routes. But we did not previously have an ILS, and we now install the ILS at Seletar Airport at the request of Firefly, a subsidiary of Malaysian Airlines. Firefly had agreed to move its operations to Seletar Airport by the 1st of December 2018. But Firefly informed the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore that the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia required all Malaysian carriers to only operate to airports with an instrument approach. Ironically, CAAS was actually trying to facilitate Firefly's operations at Seletar by installing the ILS, the same ILS which Malaysia has now objected to. CAAS sought early consultation with the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia on the implementation of the ILS procedures at Seletar. CAAS formally approached the Malaysian agency in December 2017, but received no response for almost a year. CAAM, the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia, only replied in November 2018, objecting for the first time to the proposed ILS procedures and citing alleged consequences on the future development of the Pasir Gudang. Despite this delay, CAAS addressed all their concerns. It is important to note that the ILS uses exactly the same flight paths that aircraft landing at Seletar have used all along for visual flights. Flight procedures, such as those for the Seletar ILS, are a basic element of civil aviation which inform pilots on what they need to do in order to land or take off safely. There have been claims that the ILS flight paths will more strictly restrict the height of buildings below it. This is untrue. The ILS opposes no additional requirement or limitation preventing Malaysia from developing tall buildings in Pasir Gudang or operating tall ships in Pasir Gudang port. There were allegations that Pasir Gudang will not be able to have buildings higher than 5 stories because of the ILS. But if members drive across the causeway and drive around Pasir Gudang, you will see that there are, in fact, already structures that are as tall as 105 meters, and this, by the way, is taller than many HDB blocks. You can see from this satellite photograph, which I want to emphasize was obtained from open sources, that there are indeed existing high-rise developments in the Pasir Gudang area. So the ILS has not and will not prevent the building of tall structures as alleged by Malaysia. And we have consistently stated that if Malaysia has any new plans for new developments, we are prepared to discuss and to adjust the ILS procedures if necessary. Ultimately, the purpose of the ILS procedures is to improve safety and to facilitate flights. And in this case, especially for Malaysia's own Firefly, which services many smaller Malaysian airports. The CAAS met CAAM on the 29th of November 2018 to address their concerns. Following this meeting, the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore published the ILS procedures for Seletar Airport on the 1st of December 2018. And this was done in accordance with Singapore's responsibilities under the relevant ICAO requirements. ICAO is the International Civil Aviation Organization. So it published the ILS procedures in accordance with our responsibilities under the relevant ICAO requirements, as well as the bilateral arrangements between Singapore and Malaysia. And to give the aviation community time to prepare for the ILS, it set the effective date for the implementation of the ILS as the 3rd of January 2019, a timeline which is entirely in line with international norms. During this period, on the 12th of December 2018, the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia issued a notice to airmen. The acronym is called NOTAM, Notice to Airmen. And this notice to airmen unilaterally declared the airspace over Pasir Gudang as an unmanned aerial vehicle operation area from the 13th to the 28th of December 2018. This notice to airmen was subsequently cancelled on the 20th of December 2018. But subsequently, on Christmas Day, the 25th of December 2018, the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia issued another notice to airmen, this time declaring a permanent restricted area over Pasir Gudang between 2,000 feet and 5,000 feet altitude for, quote, military purposes or military activities, unquote. And that this restricted area would take effect from the 2nd of January 2019. This restricted area would force flights operating to and from Seletar Airport to spiral up and down close to the airport in order to traverse above the restricted area at 6,000 feet. Malaysia's action contravened established ICAO procedures. All over the world, and this is a point worth emphasizing, all over the world, aviation is by nature transboundary. Aviation is by nature transboundary. The Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore, as the air traffic services provider for the area, was neither informed nor consulted, even though these actions affected current civil aviation operations out of Seletar Airport. It cut through an established international aviation route, and it affected flight efficiency and safety. Malaysia's declaration of a permanent restricted area escalated what was initially a matter concerning ILS procedures, which is a norm for many airports around the world, into a much more serious issue affecting all flights operating at Seletar Airport from the north. This was not helpful for commercial aviation in the area, and furthermore, damaged the overall tenor of our bilateral relationship. At our meeting last week, Minister Saifuddin and I agreed that Singapore would suspend the implementation of the ILS procedures at Seletar Airport, and Malaysia would also suspend the permanent restricted area for a period of 1 month in the first instance. This mutual suspension went into effect simultaneously at midnight on the 9th of January 2019. And this has allowed normal operations to resume at Seletar Airport, with aircraft able to fly their normal established flight paths over Pasir Gudang in and out of Seletar. Unfortunately, Malaysia's Firefly will still be unable to start operating at Seletar due to its own Malaysian regulators' requirement. We also agreed that the transport ministers from both countries should meet soon for discussions on these measures and to resolve the issues. The transport ministers, I believe, have agreed to meet later this month. Mr. Speaker, I strongly believe that both countries share a common interest in safe and efficient international civil aviation operations. After all, this has brought great economic benefits and tourism to both countries and indeed to our region. And as such, I look forward to the resolution of these issues in an amicable fashion. There are other issues that we have to deal with. Singapore will do our best to discuss all outstanding bilateral issues with Malaysia in a calm, reasonable, and focused manner. This approach extends to other issues beyond the Johor Bahru port limits and the Seletar ILS procedures. For example, Malaysia had earlier expressed their intention to review the 1974 Operational Letter of Agreement on airspace arrangements in southern Johor. And we had responded that we would review their proposal when we receive it. Such discussions on air navigation arrangements involve consultations with international stakeholders and cannot be done overnight. In the meantime, in the interests of civil aviation safety, air traffic operations must continue according to the current arrangements and in accordance with ICAO requirements.